Most buyers think they're buying a house on the lake. They're not. At Sylvan Lake, you're buying the lot, a shoreline, a neighborhood, and a list of hidden risks that most people don't see until it's too late, unfortunately. And I've watched those mistakes cost buyers tens of thousands of dollars, months of stress, and in a few cases, the property they thought they were actually getting. I've sold real estate on Sylvan Lake for 26 years. Sylvan Lake is my backyard. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 biggest mistakes I see lakefront buyers make here over and over again. Because lakefront and Sylvan Lake can be one of the best purchases your family ever makes, but only if you go through it with your eyes wide open. Let's start with the mistakes almost everybody makes first. Mistake number 1 is falling in love with the house and ignoring the lot. And at Sylvan, unfortunately, that's backwards. On regular residential property, the house drives the value. On lakefront, the lot drives everything. That's the deal. The house can be renovated, the kitchen can be changed, the deck can be rebuilt, but you cannot renovate your frontage, your view, your sun exposure, your shoreline, your water depth, or your slope to the lake. And those things affect how the property feels every single time you use it. Here's what I mean. Water frontage. A 50-foot lot versus a 75-foot lot are 2 completely different experiences. And that difference can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. How about orientation? Morning sun, afternoon sun, sound like the same? They're not. They shape the way you live at the lake. And if your best time at the property is Saturday afternoon and evening, well, that matters. Bottom condition. What about if it's sandy? Is it rocky? Potentially weedy? Not a lot of weeds in Sylvan, but there are a little bit of areas that have them. Your kids are going to care. Your guests are going to care. And eventually, you will care too. What about water depth at the dock? Some properties look beautiful from the road, but they disappoint the second you actually try and use the water. What about slope of the lot or height to the water? A gentle walk to the water feels effortless. A steep slope can mean stairs, retaining walls, maintenance, and headaches buyers just didn't budget for. I've seen buyers walk through a beautiful lakefront home, fall in love with the kitchen, the windows, the view, and never go down, stand at the water's edge, and look back at what they're actually buying. That is a mistake. Walk to the water first every time, because a beautiful house can distract you from a bad lakefront decision. Even if you pick the right lot, the next mistake is the one that quietly blows up in people's budgets. Mistake number 2 is underestimating the carrying costs. Yeah, the mortgage is a number most buyers focus on, but it's not the number that surprises them. What surprises them is everything that comes with lakefront ownership that nobody properly walked them through beforehand. Things like dock maintenance, replacement. Sylvan Lake, obviously docks can take a beating. We have ice, weather, storms. We have seasonal install and removal, plus the wear and tear over time. This is not a small line item. Shoreline upkeep. Erosion can be a thing. If a shoreline isn't properly maintained, the problem doesn't stay cosmetic for long. What about insurance? You're on the water, and your insurer will know that. Your premium will reflect that. Older infrastructure. A lot of great lake properties in places like Birchcliff, Jarvis, Norganwold, they were built decades ago. That charm can be real, but so can old electrical, plumbing, heating systems, and how about deferred maintenance? I've seen buyers spend $30,000 to $50,000 in the first year and on just some of the things they never expected. Not because they were careless, because no one gave them a full picture before they bought. That conversation needs to happen before you write the offer, not after. If your agent isn't walking you through the real ownership costs of lakefront and Sylvan, you need to ask harder questions. But even buyers who budget properly can still get it wrong, because the next mistake has nothing to do with the property itself. It has everything to do with the lifestyle around it. Mistake number 3 is buying the neighborhood without knowing it better first. And this matters a lot more than buyers think. People talk about Sylvan Lake like it's one market. Just so you know, it's not. Lakefront around Sylvan Lake has distinct communities. Birchcliff, Jarvis Bay, Marina Bay, Sunbreaker Cove, Half Moon Bay, Norglenwold, Pelican Bay. What about Cusimo Crest, right? What about Blissful Beach? And I can tell you, they do not feel the same. Some are quieter, Some have a lot more boat traffic in peak summer. Some have gravel roads for access. Some have pavement. Some feel family heavy. Some feel older and more private. Some have tighter lots where you're aware of the people around you. And some give you a very different lake experience than buyers expected when they first saw the listing. I've had buyers purchase in an area because it looked like the best value and then realized 2 summers later that it was the wrong fit for the way their family actually wanted to live. That can get expensive. Here's my recommendation. Before you rent, before you buy, maybe you could rent in an area for a weekend or a couple weekends. Maybe you drive through on a Saturday in July at 2 p.m, not on a quiet weekday, not in October, not during the perfect showing times. Go see the neighborhood in its real form because that's what you're actually buying. One of the biggest advantages of working with someone who truly knows this lake is that they can actually tell you very quickly which area actually fits your family's lifestyle and which area doesn't. But you have to ask those questions. Now, here's where Lakefront gets dangerous because the next mistake is where buyers can win the property and still lose the deal. Mistake number 4 is treating lakefront due diligence like regular residential due diligence. This is where buyers can get caught. When a good lakefront property hits the market and it's at the right price, things can move fast. There can be pressure, there can be competition, and sometimes buyers start thinking the goal is to just win. I totally get it. Understand, been there. But the deal you win without proper due diligence can become the most expensive deal you ever made. All right, here's the key idea here. With Lakefront, a standard home inspection is just the starting point because the biggest risks here are often not the same risks you'd be looking for in a regular house. When I think about lakefront due diligence at Sylvan, I put it into 3 different buckets. First, land and access issues. What do you actually own, control, and have the right to use? This is where buyers get surprised by things like reserves right in front of the property. Some Sylvan Lake properties have a provincial or municipal reserve between the property line and the water. Just so you know, that strip of land is not yours. You may not be able to build on it. You may not be able to control the way you think you do. And in some cases, it changes how you use the property and what the property is actually worth. Does that automatically kill the deal? Absolutely not. But it absolutely affects value and what your expectations should be. Okay. Then there are riparian rights. Riparian rights is simply you own up to the high water mark where that lot is. But you have to remember what you can and can't do at the shoreline, what improvements are allowed, what access means, and where public versus private use becomes relevant. This is one of those things that is very manageable once you understand it. But many buyers don't even know they should be asking the question. Okay. The second bucket is water, wastewater, and infrastructure issues. What systems are serving this property and what happens if they fail or need to be replaced? Okay. Around Sylvan Lake, many properties rely on private wells, if not, a high percentage of them for their water, along with septic tanks and grinder pumps that either connect to a municipal wastewater line or discharge to a gravity septic field. And that matters because you do not want to assume those systems are fine just because the house looks good. Regular home inspection, we talked about it. What's that? The furnace has issues. What's a new furnace? $5,000? Well, I can tell you a new septic system, it's way more than $5,000. Your due diligence should include testing the well for potability, confirming well recovery, and having the entire septic system inspected and tested, tank, pump, and disposal setup included. Because if the water system or septic system has problems, you're not dealing with cosmetic issues. We just talked about that. You're dealing with a property function issue and potentially a very, very expensive one. Same goes for water intrusion, hidden moisture issues, shoreline structure, dock condition, and the kind of wear that comes from living that close to the lake. A standard inspection may catch some of it. A lakefront experienced professional is much more likely to know where the real risks live. Third bucket, use and income assumptions. Can you use the property the way you're planning to use it? A lot of buyers assume they can offset costs with short-term rentals like Airbnb and VRBO. Do your homework. Sometimes they can, but sometimes the municipality or summer village has restrictions, permit requirements, or limitations that can change that plan dramatically. So if part of your purchase decision depends on rental income, you need to verify the rules for that specific address before any conditions come off, not after. All right. Because finding out after closing that your strategy doesn't quite work is a very expensive surprise. So here's the bottom line. A good lakefront inspection is not just about the roof, furnace, and windows. It's about the shoreline, access, reserves, riparian issues, wells and septic systems, dock, water-related damage, and whether you intend to use the property as it fits the rules. That's what real due diligence looks like on the lake here at Sylvan Lake. I'm not saying you can never write a competitive offer. I'm just saying this. If you're moving fast, you better have the right eyes on the property before you commit. Fair? Because winning the property means nothing if you bought the wrong one. Okay, and that leads us to the last mistake. The one almost causes all others. Mistake number 5 is working with an agent who truly doesn't know Sylvan Lake Lakefront. And I'm going to be direct here. Sylvan Lake attracts buyers from Red Deer, Calgary, Edmonton, all over Alberta and Western Canada. A lot of those buyers bring their agent they already know and trust. I get it. And that agent may be excellent in their own market. But Lakefront at Sylvan Lake has its own language, its own history, its own problem areas, its own nuances. Which neighborhoods behave differently? Which lots have unusual access issues? Which properties have shoreline disputes? Which ones have been listed before and why? Which streets are more desirable for the way your family actually wants to use the lake? That kind of insight usually does not show up in the listing. And it definitely doesn't show up in pretty photos. It comes from being here, from walking these lots, from knowing these communities, from seeing the same properties trade over and over. Knowledge is your superpower when you buy real estate, and your agent's local knowledge becomes your protection. So ask better questions. Ask, how many lakefront properties at Sylvan have you sold in the last 5 years? Ask, walk this lot with me and tell me what you see that I don't. That answer will tell you a lot. Okay, so those are the 5 biggest mistakes I see buyers make when purchasing lakefront in Sylvan. Number 1, falling in love with the house, ignoring the lot. Number 2, underestimating the real cost of ownership. Number 3, buying the property before understanding the neighborhood. Number 4, treating lakefront due diligence like regular home purchase. And number 5, working with someone who truly doesn't know the lake. Here's the good news. For the right buyer, lakefront at Sylvan Lake can be one of the best decisions you will ever make. I've watched families build years and years of memories. This lake is special, but the best lakefront stories usually start the same way, with a smart purchase. If you're seriously considering buying lakefront in Sylvan, we have put together a Sylvan Lake lakefront buyer checklist that covers the exact things we talked about in this video. If you want it, just text me the word checklist and I'll send it over. And if you're looking at a specific property, I'm happy to give you the honest truth about it, even if it's not what you're hoping to hear. I'm Pat Garritty with the Trilliant Real Estate Group. Let's be better every day.